The Southern Baptist Convention is the largest Protestant denomination in America. There are millions of Baptists across the country. Some of them now prefer to call themselves Great Commission Baptists instead of Southern Baptists. They think the Southern branding causes a regionalism issue for them. They had their vote for a new president yesterday. There were four candidates: Randy Adams from Washington State, Ed Litton from Alabama, Al Mohler from Kentucky, and Mike Stone from here in Georgia. In fact, Mike Stone was the speaker at my kid's school's graduation a couple of weeks ago. Mike Stone was the guy everyone expected to win. He is a conservative's conservative. Al Mohler is a conservative's conservative as well. Al Mohler's like the Southern Baptist Pope. Al Mohler has taught and trained almost all of the prominent Southern Baptist preachers in America. He is the president of the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. Ed Litton is a Baptist preacher from North Mobile, Alabama. I think it's North Mobile Baptist Church is the name of his church. And he is perceived as a moderate. He talks about racial reconciliation. He's not a critical race theory proponent, but has thought that the agitation against it is misguided. And then there's Randy Adams, who really didn't make a bit of a difference. He was from Washington State. He got like 675 votes out of almost 15,000 cast. His only big issue was he's not happy with the International Mission Board within the Southern Baptist Convention. Now, a lot of people the headline is that Ed Litton won, and the Baptists reject the hardcore conservative. That's not really true. Yes, Litton won with 52% of the vote, but they do they essentially take two rounds. They have a primary and a runoff, so to speak. And whoever, unless one person gets 50%, the top two go into the runoff. Well, Al Mohler came in third, Ed Litton came in second, Mike Stone came in first in the first round. Al Mohler and Mike Stone together got 60% of the vote on the nose. Mike Stone is backed by the most hardcore of the conservatives. Al Mohler is backed by the conservatives. Ed Litton was backed by the more moderate people. Al Mohler's voters went to Ed Litton in the second round. Now, you need to know some background here. Al Mohler was probably, had this election been had last year, a shoo-in, but they extended J.D. Greer's term by a year because of COVID. They couldn't meet to do a vote. So the Executive Council of the SBC agreed to let Greer stay on another year. Normally it's a one-year term. Mohler did not back Donald Trump in 2016. And the hardcore conservatives held it against him. In addition, Al Mohler is a very nice man. He is very nice. Everyone who meets Al Mohler tends to like him. And Al Mohler, one reason people tend to like him is he's not a nasty person. And there are people within the Southern Baptist Convention the conservatives have decided they dislike. Like, for example, Russell Moore and Beth Moore, no relation between the two. Both of them have left the Southern Baptist Convention. Al Mohler says nice things about both of them. He's not willing to attack them. In fact, Russell Moore worked under Al Mohler for a number of years. Al Mohler has come out aggressively against critical race theory, but he hasn't performed. Remember yesterday I told you guys that one of the issues we're dealing with in the country right now is song and dance routines. You can't just say you're against something. You've got to rip off your shirt, spray paint your opposition across your chest, beat it, and scream. And if you're not willing to do that, well then, are we really sure you really are committed to what you say you're committed to? Al Mohler is not into performance. He's into telling you what he believes. And you either accept it or you don't. Some conservatives have gone into postmodernism and decided, well, unless you do me a song and dance, I can't really believe you're saying the truth. And by the way, you didn't vote for Trump, so clearly you're suspect. So those people all went with Mike Stone from here in Georgia. Now, Mike Stone is a good guy. Mike Stone is a committed pastor. He's in Blackshear, Georgia. He is as conservative as Al Mohler is on everything, but Mike Stone is willing to do the song and dance that Al Mohler is not. So a group formed called the Conservative Baptist Network. It's a group of people, some of whom are grifters, not all of them, but some. And they have convinced themselves that they are indispensable to the Southern Baptist Convention and that it is a necessary fight to stop a left-wing drift of the Southern Baptist Convention. And you are either completely for them or completely against them. There can be no nuance. and Jesus wept. They ran a political campaign as if they were running someone for Congress, instead of running a campaign to be the head of an intra-denominational loose confederacy of pastors and churches. They engaged in character assassination and smear campaigns, whether it was them or their supporters. Most people think the CBN was behind a lot of it. They were engaged in the Mike Stone supporters. Let me put it to you that way. Mike Stone supporters were ruthlessly engaged in the character assassination of some very good people, some very conservative people. But they weren't with Mike Stone, and they weren't with this group. Therefore, they were the enemy, and they were treated as such. So a lot of Al Mohler's supporters wound up going with Ed Litton, the more moderate person, not because they see eye to eye with Litton on every issue, but they wanted to rebuke the way the people around Mike Stone conducted themselves. So this was not so much a vote against Mike Stone as it was a vote against the people who were aggressively pushing Mike Stone. He was repudiated because of them and because he never said anything about them. I mean, they were going after Danny Akin. Now, full disclosure, I have been working on my doctorate at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. Danny Akin is the president there, and the man is a conservative. He's just a nice guy. He doesn't get into the tit-for-tat fights that some people believe they should these days. He has drafted statements against critical race theory. He's a complementarian, meaning men should be the head of the household. All the things that any Baptist could want, he is, and yet he's been has character assassinated by people tied to Mike Stone because he didn't support Mike Stone. It was really, really gross to see a group of people justify their nasty conduct in the name of defense of faith. And they've been repudiated. Now, the headlines in all of the newspapers was that the Baptists chose to go in a more moderate direction. And it's true. Ed Litton, he is a complementarian. He believes men should be the head of the household. He's against critical race theory, although he thinks that some of its nuances can be used to examine race relations. He is in favor of talking about racial reconciliation. He is believes that the sexual abuse survivors of the Southern Baptist Convention need to be treated respectfully. And so, yes, to that degree, he's more moderate than some, but he's also still believes in biblical inerrancy, believes the Bible's the word of God, believes in the physical resurrection of Christ, believes in complementarianism, and on it goes. So it's not like he's a liberal. He's just not the hardcore conservative engaged in song and dance of burning down the critical theorists and everyone who supports them. So you got to have some nuance to understand this. And the fact of the matter is that the conservatives who backed Stone really did behave terribly. So Litton won as a rebuke to those who backed Stone and to Stone himself. There were some criticisms of Stone of how he handled some behind-the-scenes stuff related to sexual abuse survivors within the Southern Baptist Convention. And that all came out in the last couple of weeks, and that hurt him as well. For the media to say the Southern Baptists decided to go in a more moderate direction, though, is a flat-out willful intention to try to break up the Southern Baptist Convention. Now, there are some of the hardcore conservatives out there who now want to break up the Southern Baptist Convention because Mike Stone didn't win. That would be a schism within the convention that would spill over into American cultural life. But it's the media doing its best to stir the pot right now. Saying, oh, the SBC's gone more moderate. They really haven't. I mean, 60% of Southern Baptists on the first ballot voted for Al Mohler or Mike Stone, two men whose conservative credentials are not in dispute.